Well, hello. Once again, those of you that just saw Game 2 between Hydrapower and DIVISIGNS, we've got Game 3 right now. Game 2 ultimately decided, it seems, just to catch you up, by a little bit of a boot, or two boots, I suppose, on Pendant Helmasaur, which dominoed the rest of the seed in Hydrapower's favor, being able to check that a little bit sooner, leading to an item in Graveyard Ledge, the Bombus Medallion, which allowed us to, well, I guess slightly out of order, to get, wow, Canis Samaria right out of Misery Mire, how about that? And then Bombos leading into Turtle Rock to get the hookshot for Swamp Palace off of a laser bridge. That's what you might have seen in the past hour and a half, might have missed it. We've got an exciting Game 3 coming up. Aside from that, I should probably introduce what we've got going on right now. I'm in the name of DT, along with my good bud Philian. Reg, once again, joining us for tracking, who just happened to do Game 2 as well, so shoutouts to the double duty.
Yo, shoutouts to Reg.
Shoutouts to Game 3s, and a hype series, too. Wow,
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
I missed the game too, but it sounds like it was a heck of a one to watch.
It was...
Sorry,
it was.
I'm distracted by DIVISIGNS sprite. I didn't know we had a hint tile sprite. I thought those were removed from this tournament.
Oh, well, I mean, this one doesn't actually yield any information.
It tells you where you are on the screen and which way you're facing. Not which way you're facing, probably.
I mean, considering that Link is kind of generally always plus or minus a little bit in the middle of the screen, I mean, that's why there's an invisible sprite and you still know where you are.
I suppose so.
Supposing so, indeed. But yeah, as mentioned, really good race in Race 2. Race 3 sure to be just as exciting, coming down to routing, both seemingly evenly matched in execution. Always very exciting to see a race on a level playing field in that regard. So within a moment or so, we should be on to Game 3.
And this is the losers part of Group L, if I'm reading Challenge correctly, which means the winner here stays in the tournament, and the loser goes home.
Well, how about that as a first item?
Oh my goodness! Yes, yes.
So I'm pretty early on in race number 2, but always an amazing thing to start with. And it looked like we've got 3 crystals in the Light World, very early map check, with a Pyramid Fairy crystal at Desert Palace.
We're on the radio, so you can't see my face, but I am lit up with the idea that we can just run straight to Eastern Palace area as soon as we have a bomb for Sawhouse
Oh
Blossom.
yeah. I mean, we've got
I'm so happy.
handful of arrows now. You think anyone's going to stick around for escape? And I mean, the good things keep coming too. We've got 80 rupees off of the tier 1 tree pole.
I mean, 5 is enough arrows if you never miss. It's not ideal.
I suppose it's not.
It's fine until you miss and you lose a bit
Well-
of time and you put yourself on tilt. Hydra can't do it now.
No. And DIVISIGNS actually doesn't. Well, there's a drop. But yeah, no, probably the smarter thing at this point. I'm just being me. I do want to say though, real interesting shout out to DIVISIGNS timer. Reminded me of an old timey cash register.
That is a fun timer. That is a great timer and better than some of the other fonts I've seen.
Ha, well, you're not seeing those as often anymore, so let it be known. Anywho, just a red rupee in Sanctuary. Both runners going to follow the same standard opening. That was one of the most interesting things about Race 2 that I saw, was that there was a lot of back and forth. It took a while before anybody finally decided to do something that the other runner hadn't done, and it kept all of us on the edge of our seats for probably a good half hour or so. And of course things picked up, and that's why we're here now. Hydrapower taking good advantage of that tree pole once again. Oh, there it is. That's a heart. It just went right through the lumberjack tree. I didn't see what it was at first.
Not the greatest hoarder crab prize, but I will take that if it means I can get the 80 rupees. We see a bottle in the sanctuary, or lumberjack ledge.
Yeah, it's a sanctuary for lumberjacks, I guess.
I mean, if you talk to the glitched runners, it's kind of a sacred place because you can't get in there without beating Aga. But
Probably one of the few places remaining, I would guess. And looks like Flipper's in the Thieves hideout in the Lost Woods. So, you know, a little bit of early access to some extra checks. Sitting at 200 rupees right now. We'll spend at least 100 in Kakariko. Possibly 150 if we need to purchase bombs. But, I mean, clearly with that tree pull, no shortage of money, so Zora could be a thing in the relatively near future.
Yeah, I really like the option for pushing an early Zora here. DIVISIGNS going straight to the bottle vendor in the village, trying to get some bombs and doesn't get any there.
Nah, so the next best bet is to check the back of the tavern. If there's nothing here, then you go for the purchase, but at least there's a little bit of money to help supplement it.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made that you might just want to drop into the well and try that blind, because circling through the well an extra time doesn't hurt too much. Going into Blind's Hut without bombs, very risky and punishing if it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. A bit more of a time sink. I guess in a way you got to think though that between the well and Blind's Hut that you've got 4 accessible chests anyway without bombs, so the chances that you find a 3-pack are generally pretty okay. It's just never when you need it.
Exactly. Now that we bought bombs, I'm sure we'll find several in here.
Oh, of course. That's just the way of the world. But either way, as we all know, Kakariko, very, very dense. The common intro play. We got a glove straight off the bat. Well, not the bat, I guess. That's another part of Kakariko.
Some rupees to make up for the money we spent on bombs, and there are, of course, bombs in the well, along with ether and the second bow.
Both technically Sphere 1 locations, no deeper in the logic than the other. Very interesting.
We do not have the lamp, which doesn't technically put Eastern in logic, but it does have me side-eyeing that dungeon a little bit.
Mm-hmm. For sure. An Ether Medallion not getting any use in the last seed might have something to do this time.
Okay. Okay, there's a fire rod in Blind's Hut.
That's always helpful.
Let's just pretend I've said a lot about Eastern Palace. And
just to be even more clear though, Phylian, why is it now that makes Eastern such an appealing play?
I mean, so
we don't have the
really
lamp.
Depends. If the big key is in its vanilla spot on the left side, yeah, technically the boss is still locked. But if we see the big key anywhere early in the dungeon, we're using advanced placement logic. That means Fire Rod is logically sufficient to go beat the Armos Knights. And, you know, it just has me thinking, okay, why is the game right at the start telling us that Armos Knights are beatable? Is that just coincidence, or is the game putting something useful on there?
You never know, but at the end of the day, that's a crystal that's accessible very quickly, so that alone is something useful. I do want to point out quickly, though, I'm seeing a question in chat regarding what these game settings are. This tournament has been shuffling through settings based on player choice as they go through these little mini brackets. And for Game 3, Hydrapower and DIVISIGNS went back to kind of a traditional open mode. So we've got 7 crystals for everything, and a defeat Ganon goal, no map compass shuffle. It's basically your traditional .open mode.
Okay, DIVISIGNS checks the race game, doesn't see anything useful there, and goes back to Sank and is going to check the back of Escape. I like this play. It's 3 very quick checks before you go anywhere else in the game. And I think Hydrapower is going to do the same here.
Certainly a good option straight away. Well, let's see. I mean, we got a small key there, blue boomerang, 10 arrows. So there's a map somewhere else through Escape. Just a couple of items left. We saw Hydrapower hit the front of Escape relatively early, probably around the 40-45 minute mark in seed number 2.
Would you call that an early Escape?
I mean, for open mode, I guess
it depends on your point of view.
I guess. I mean, it's not as early as like standard mode Hylian, but I've seen plus hour escapes before. So earlier than that. And their hydropower now also getting that map knowledge. Really interesting too to point out that that rock that they just picked up has a 50-50 shot of having a bomb underneath. There's a handful of those throughout the world. Good thing to know their locations.
Yeah, it takes, a second to pick it up each time. But if you keep getting a bomb, or you get a bomb half the time you do it, it's actually a good way to just keep your bomb count up slowly throughout the seed, and it prevents that nasty surprise of, being in Ice Palace and trying to bomb the floor or something, and suddenly going, hang on, when was the last time I actually got bombs?
Been there, done that. Yes, we have. Bombus medallion from the dam, so we're up to 2 medallions already. I guess really, there could be an argument made that you should go to Eastern straight away in a seed like this. But I think
made that argument.
I mean, I have too, but I think the most common counter argument is that these exact checks that these runners are doing would probably just be done right afterward anyway, so it almost doesn't even matter.
Yes and no. Like, as in, yes, they would definitely be done at some point. With something like, hey, the Moon Pearl in Mini Moldorm Cave, realistically, you don't have a seed where you skip these things. There is that Zora money question, though. Like, if you go to Eastern first, you might get some rupees in chests. If you're really struggling for money, there is a rupee room at the back of the dungeon, and that can all add up to getting your 500 earlier, so that when you come to this area, you do your Ice Rod Cave walk, and then you just hop in the water. You got your 500, you go to Zora.
I mean, well, you do make a great point. But it's always situational with this randomizer. Just depends on what you have, when you get it.
Or if you're Hydrapower, you say, I don't even want Ice Rod Cave here. I'm going to hop in the water and go straight to Hobo.
I mean, who does want Ice Rod Cave?
DIVISIGNS.
I like that you have a quick answer for everything.
Literally, he's there right now.
You know what? Yes. You got me on this one, my friend.
Alright, he's going to take the save and quit, holding off on the Zora and Hobo stuff for now. Hydra gets 10 bombs for the Hobo. It looks like he's going to continue on in this area. I haven't timed it. Maybe it's faster to do Hobo than Ice Rod Cave as opposed to Ice Rod than Hobo.
I think it might be because swimming is a little bit faster than walking, if I'm remembering my movement correctly.
And there is a lot of walking you get to cut out along the bottom when you do it this way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other point. When you're walking from Mini Moldorm Cave all the way to Ice Rod, you're on the very perimeter of the world. At least through this, you get to kind of take a little bit of a hypotenuse.
I thought we saved those for Ega too. Alright, Hydra with the save and quit. Not going to go to Zora area without the full requirement of money. And DIVISIGNS over in the eastern area has got a shovel from Saha's closet.
So we will see what Eastern Palace lies. If nothing else, we'll get a crystal out of the matter. Regardless of where the big key is and the logic, I mean, like you had mentioned, we might need Lamp if it's in its vanilla location. But in terms of the dark rooms that this game has, the Eastern Palace dark rooms are probably among the most friendly. I think really the biggest damage that you can take is from the anti-fairies, if you happen to get caught up in one of those doing a full heart each. But they're generally pretty safe to navigate.
Alright, so we did get the big key in the first chest, I think. Which means Armos fully in logic here.
Just a compass on the right side. And of course, having silver's nothing here is going to be anything even remotely problematic. Plenty of arrow pots along the way as well. Hydropower sitting at 11, with DIVISIGNS almost 10 higher than that right now.
Yeah, Hydra was spending a few arrows at the start. And there also might be a difference because Hydrapower skipped on Sahasrah's hut on his way here. It looks like he's going to loop back there after this dungeon is done with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
generally
he'll be going through here without a shield, which makes no difference.
Yeah, literally none. There are no regular projectiles in this dungeon. But in terms of routing to the dungeon first and then to Sahasrah, I generally like that route myself. If you have the glove, it just keeps it more of a nice little counterclockwise circle.
Yeah, you do have to have the glove. Don't fall into that trap of, I'm just going to climb up the stairs on the right-hand side, because that won't work without a lift upgrade.
Kinda can't. There is a rock at the base of the stairs.
DIVISIGNS getting ambushed by the anti-fairies in the dark room, and you know, you get those iframes. They keep you from taking damage, but they don't protect your magic. And we saw his magic just get drained away there.
Interesting time to check the stun pack as well. Just a bomb could come in handy for sure. DIVISIGN's going to play this a little bit safer, not try to use what's left of their health to get the damage boost through for the little trick here. Still having a little bit of trouble dancing around those anti-fairies. They are ruthless at times. And just a heart piece for that trouble. We're still not out of it. Yeah, there we go.
Looks like Hydra had a much better time going through the dark room, which is good. You know, you can beat this dark room without lighting the torch, but it is just slightly easier if you want to take the second or two to light it and be absolutely sure of where the Igors are, and more importantly, where you are.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if worst comes to worst, you can back out of the room relatively simply and drop down those pots to get a couple of fairies, but we see here the biggest advantage Hydrapower has is actually having magic to light the torch. DIVISIGNS does not have that luxury after the battle with those anti-fairies.
Yeah, so there's two ways you can light a torch in that room. You can step forward and shoot a fire rod shot straight left or straight right, or you can just double shoot straight ahead. First one kills the popos, second one hits the torch.
And DIVISIGN's giving it a second shot, trying to just inch toward that Igor. Very good use of the arrow to just get it stuck in the Igor. That arrow remains visible for a few seconds. Unfortunately, getting bopped by what I presume to be the other Igor in the room. That enemy as well doing a full heart of damage. And when you can't see them, And DIVISIGN's just going to save and quit out for now.
I guess if you have your 3 items, you might as well just come back here later.
But Philian...
But there were only 2 items there.
That was only 2. Red Rupee, not going to be any consequence for DIVISIGNS to miss for now.
Okay, why did the game give us, like, right at the start, 2 bows and a fire rod, and then just not put any progression in Eastern Path?
At this point, I'm just going to go with because those are feel-good items.
Yeah, but that's a feels-bad bait.
It definitely can be. I think for me personally, I'd be happy having a crystal sub 20 minutes, and you just try to focus on that and keep on moving at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not like that time was wasted for Hydrapower. If DIVISIGNS gets back to pod with the mirror, it's not wasted time either. You just mirror and walk through again. DIVISIGNS maybe a little worried that he's leaving an item behind. Fortunately, only a red rupee on Armos.
I mean, the question remains to be seen, is pod going to even be a crystal or a pendant? If it's a pendant, you hope that you have a convenient time to route that back in. And at that point, you also hope that pod is a little bit more valuable than needing the boots off of the pendant boss. But just a little recap of what happened in Game 2 that ultimately
with the lore
led us to come into Game 3. Is it really lore if it happened like an hour ago?
It's lore if I missed it.
Well, okay, that's fair.
That's a terrible definition, and let's not pick it apart. There's so much wrong with that idea.
It fits the bill in this case, though.
Okay, so we have escape right here. And I don't think we found any progression doing this. We might get something in Zelda Cell. If it's not that, are we looking at Zora and Agina?
Well, I think the bigger question is, have we seen the map here yet? Was it in the blue boomerang room, or will it be here? It's right here. So there's an item in the sewers chest. And there's a torch in every single one of those rooms. We have a fire rod.
Oh yeah, this one's in logic as well.
DIVISIGNS gonna go for it. Not a lot of magic. If you know how to navigate these rooms, though, without much of an indication of where you are, there are a couple of small magic pots that you can pick up. Getting through this first one's not too bad, and then the second one, if you can just face tank a couple of hits from some snakes, you should be okay.
DIVISIGNS, I think, is trying to find the staircase. In the first room. And there, he's found it. So now we're in the snake room where... Oh, he's going to switch to the fire rod, hit the torch, and find out he's way further left than I thought he was.
And there's plenty of magic left to be able to shoot once more, which... all that we need at this point. We'll just light a torch quickly and be on our way. We know it's an item. We've seen the map. We've seen I almost said the compass. There's no compass here. The small key. And then,
like
yeah,
he missed the torch, but he can still find the chest fairly easily by lining himself up with the bottom of the top torch, and then moving left a bit.
And there it is. Nicely done to navigate the room. Also nicely done to find the hammer here, giving us logical Dark World access.
Yeah, that is what we needed. Looks like he's gonna take that and go straight to Hype Cave, and then, depending on if it's a pendant or crystal, who's for pod?
You know, it's a fair question. It's one of the things that you might ask yourself, like, based on what happened in the last seed, do you just go straight there? If it's a crystal, I would be inclined to say yes. It's another pendant. I didn't see all of that. It looked like the other Pyramid Fairy crystal at Swamp, and I believe Green Pendant up at Turtle Rock. Strikingly similar to Game 2 just a little bit ago. I believe it was Tower of Hera in Game 2 that had the third pendant, so slight difference here.
As much as I want that bow to mean something, I think when you have this set up at the start of the game, you can't quite just YOLO pod in this circumstance. Or you can, but you probably shouldn't.
It's a bit of a tough call. I mean, when you have almost the entirety of the Dark World at your disposal, all at once, it's not too common that there's a wrong place to start from. I mean, every runner seems to have their preference. But wow, we've got Game 2's Go Mode items straight away from Stumpy there, picking up the hook shot. So, DIVISIGNS definitely going to be happy about that. We don't have logical Death Mountain access yet, but between hookshot and hammer, that does open up quite a bit of other opportunity for us. But for now, just a bit more Dark World. We've got Hydrapower in Skullwoods. I like the play that they're making here, coming over and getting this small key. And then timing actually works out really nicely for that Floor Master to pick you up and take you back.
Yeah, you just have to avoid your muscle memory and make sure you don't kill it with the bot by accident, which so many of us have spent a couple of years doing in practice.
You can always have the fun occasion too where you throw the pot at it, hear it die and watch it die, and then it still picks you up. Someone once said, game's weird, man, and I believe it.
Oh, good eye from Hydra here, bombing open the wall to just grab the magic refill. Just in case.
Good use of the time as well, let the bomb explode as you go to pick up the chest. Essentially losing no extra time. So, Philian, how often would you ever go to the back of Skullwoods without a sword just to get the one item? I mean, if you're going to make it walk all the way to the small key, you ever go a little further?
It's hard to say. It's so weird in V31. Because depending on how many small keys you get from the front and the middle section, you might be able to say, hey, I know that chest under the bridge is a small key. I don't need to get it. The problem is to get enough information to do that. You have to go to the middle so that you're certain you won't get locked in the front. Then you have to come back to the front. And at that point, I'm not sure I'd want to walk all the way back to the back section for
That's fair.
Potentially an item.
So just bombs up on top of the bumper ledge.
Because you'll have a situation where you can have a situation where you know it's a small key there, but you can never have a situation when you know it's an item. The best you could hope for is like it's either an item or a compass, and then Mothula is an item or a compass, or in this case, a map.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure I want to walk that far on a 50-50 chance. If I have a sword, I'd do it. But
oh, of course, that's a completely different ballgame then. I think most people would share that sentiment, though. Hydropowered a little bit low on health to try that bomb jump once more. Just going to take a quick death warp. Probably give it another shot. We do have the big key. We're still looking for one more item. Meanwhile, DIVISIGNS going through the Village of Outcasts, finding our first bottle. So for those of you just tuning in as well, the Lumberjack tree had a bottle that is no longer even close to relevant. And just having a little bit more trouble on that bomb jump. You know, without having the boots, there's not really a way to buffer that bomb jump to give you more than the original 2 pixels tolerance to pull it off. If you have a sword, however, like DIVISIGNS just picked up in the chest game, you can kind of back into the pit while you're holding the sword out and release a spin, and it kind of sucks you in right to that 2 pixel limit, and then you're fine. It's a pretty difficult thing to just eyeball. And just for a map.
I do support Hydrapower coming at this and missing it a few times and then going, okay, the best thing I can do for this is do it the vanilla intended way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. It's a guarantee at this point, and when you try something a couple of times and you know you're having just a little bit of trouble with it, just go for that guarantee then. But I will say it is nice, though, that Skullwoods and Thieves Town are both crystals, and we're fully equipped to take them both out. It's not the most fun area to have to revisit. Something that you always want to kind of lump together if possible. Just a little bit of knowledge on Hydrapower side, also seeing the bombs up on top of Bumper Ledge.
So if I counted right, or understand Skullwoods right, because Hydrapower got the map out of the big chest, and got one item already, that means that the back of Skullwoods is going to have a key and an item. And because the key can't be on Moth, means the item's going to be on Moth. So, turns out not walking back there was a correct play, especially because that sword is sitting in the Village of Outcasts. Okay, so both players going to do Thieves Town pretty shortly here. DIVISIGNS already upstairs, and oh, that hurts. Sees the magic drop from the grasshoppers upstairs, steps through, goes to a different super tile, which means the drop doesn't get preserved. And he tries to go back for it, but of course it's gone. That's just mean. The good news is when he beats this dungeon, he will get a refill of his magic, but if he can get that refill before the dungeon finishes, then he doesn't have to wait for it to fill up after the crystal fanfare.
That's true. Saves a little bit of time. We have a small key. It won't be locked behind itself then. Honestly, didn't happen to notice if we got map and compass, but there's going to be at least one more item through here. Well, we're missing the compass, so there will be 2 more items in Thieves Town. And at this point, too, I know that you had mentioned Agnes Cave and Zora earlier on. We've seen a pretty good chunk of the Dark World at this point. It's kind of making me wonder when we might get logical access up to Death Mountain, whether it be the flute or the lamp, or if we're going to have to see somebody make a play into another Pendant Palace of Darkness.
Yeah. So, if I could somehow be told that I needed the lamp to get up the mountain logically, and it was in Agina's cave, I would just ignore it and I'd go straight up the mountain. Because I've got a fire source, I know I can beat Hera. I can do everything else up there. But it's that possibility that it's the flute that has me unsure about, should you hunt down your logical access to the mountain, and then you get your flute and all your travel is faster for the rest of the seed? Or do you just go for that lamp? Do you assume it's the lamp required to get up there and just head up there?
And that's the interesting question.
If Myra was a pendant, I would assume I was going to use the flute to get up there, and that I had some weird non-required late flute. But with a crystal mire, you're going to need that flute at some point.
So I guess the question more in the short term is, do we sequence break it? Do we continue on with what we have available in the Dark World? Or do we go for it? Because there's always the possibility of finding the reverse bit of information, because if you find the lamp or the flute up on Death Mountain, then the other one is somewhere in the lower world.
That's true, and maybe it's just my perception bias, but I feel like a lot of the time you do find one of those 2 items up in, like, Paradox Cave. But that's using the same logic of, we always see Fire Rod in Ice Palace when we get an early Bombos or something like that. And I never know how reliable that truly is.
It's tough to say. The randomizer has gotten more and more random as time has gone on, and makes things even more difficult to predict. There's not always a clear trail of breadcrumbs to follow.
Either way, I do like this play for DIVISIGNS. Obviously, there's nothing left in South Dark World for him. So it turns out his play in the South to get the hookshot earlier has really worked out. He's got that item, and now he can just head over to the back of Skull.
Not having been here yet, though, it could be a several-minute trek through the dungeon. But starting more on this backside, we are going to get knowledge of the second item in the relatively near future. Possibly a little bit low on health. Obviously, anybody that's made it into the group stage of this tournament is not lacking in skill. But Moth is one of the most unpredictable boss fights in the game, just simply due to the spikes wandering around the room, doing a full heart of damage to you regardless of your armor.
Yeah, Moth gets mitigated a bit by having the blue mail, and that helps. And it helps against the Ropas that are bullying him out here. But the red potion's going to come in handy for sure. And having the hammer is going to be a real help. Because if Moth decides to play nice and hang out at the bottom, all you need are 4 hits. I like this hookshot play to just take out the berries for certain as you're going through, especially when you're knowing you have to pick up those refills.
And always a good day, too, when you're leaving this Gibdo room with full health.
Yeah, and by using Bombos there, DIVISIGNS is able to take out the enemies a bit more slowly than if he used Fire Rod. But certainly it takes them out and preserves a bit of magic. We see him grabbing the jar here, so I think part of his plan is to use some Fire Rod shots if the hammer doesn't work out.
Yeah, if Moth likes to hang out near the top of the room above those spikes, the Fire Rod can actually be used as a way to kind of bring him back down. A little bit risky because seemingly at the speed of light, he can just come straight down into you. But it's an option. See, kind of like that right there. And that was a good hit, too, because it got him right on the block instead of the spike.
Yeah, that was a good adaptation for the whole fight. And look, there's our second item, the powder.
It opens something.
I'm sorry, where is hydrapower right now? I never see this room.
Are we playing entrance? Or inverted, even?
Yeah.
No, that does not come up often. I'm getting a little bit of seed blur just from all the tournament matches, but I believe it was actually just race 2 here that Hydrapower did that same thing.
I guess if you're looking at your rupee counter and you're saying, hey, I wish I had money for Zora and Kiki just to be sure, that's the most reliable spot to make more money.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if you're confident in your ability at it, and the Hydrapower seems like they've done it once or twice before. That was cool.
I've seen runners do it before, but usually not when they have that much money. I've seen people do it for, I need 20 more rupees for Dig Game or something. Not, I need 100 more rupees for Kiki and Zora.
I mean, the reality is that the chances of us finding that amount of money between now and then is probably pretty good. There's usually a stray 300 that turns up somewhere, but the name of the game is protecting yourself, making sure that you have what you need to do what you need to do.
And Hydrapower... is gonna do that mushroom check. This is a good time to do it, right after save and quit from the Dark World. So if it doesn't work out, he can just do a hard reset and save that mushroom for a potential fake powder later.
Mm-hmm. Might be a bit of a different story for DIVISIGNS having the actual magic powder at this point, but for
I love
Hydra,
that both powder and the mushroom were in Skull Woods.
I watched it happen. I didn't make the full connection until you said it. That's an interesting item to get from the mushroom.
Yeah, grab your Book of Mudora from the northeast part of the map. Now the dungeon in the southwest part is maybe full clearable? Depending on Boots. DIVISIGNS setting up for the fake flippers. Maybe forgetting he has the flippers right now.
They were super early. So that is a possibility. But that is an interesting way to show off how another way that you can set up fake flippers in that location. The bomb blast will knock you directly to the edge of the screen without pushing you through. So you just hop in, hold the directional, and you're set. When we got the flippers in the first 5 minutes of this, I know money's been a little bit tight. I was not expecting to see these checks almost 40 minutes later.
Yeah, I was certain they were going to come up right away, and then we got that hammer in Dark Cross, and suddenly Zora area became just not a priority for anyone.
Big priority today, though, that we are just learning about. Obviously, Kane of Samaria in the waterfall, and now Titan's Mitts up on the ledge.
Ooh.
This is a situation where you don't really care if Zora just takes 500 rupees from you. You're about to get a really good item no matter what.
Oh, and that's going to be very good for Hydrapower, who's getting mitts before heading up the mountain. DIVISIGNS is going to do this walk, and is going to do a lot of stuff. He's going to make it all the way to Hera and be able to beat that. But then he'll have to make the trek after he gets mitts as well for that East Dark World Death Mountain stuff.
Yeah, that's an immediate difference of another 6 item locations being available for Hydrapower. And I mean, when Death Mountain is dense as it is, it's even more dense when you have full access to both worlds of it. And I suspect that that's exactly where Hydrapower is going to go. No lamp, so still out of logic, technically. But at this point, you don't really care.
Honestly, once I get the mitts, I stop caring about the logic for it.
And with good reason. I mean, again, it depends on whether or not flute or lamp would be the logical access up here, but as you had mentioned, if it was just lamp, or if it becomes to be just the lamp, it's really not... I mean, it is a sequence break, but it's really not, like, a big sequence break. Like, there's very minimal consequence if this is how you're out of sequence, just by missing a lamp.
Yeah, the one thing I do wish we had, of course, is mirror, so that you could be a bit more efficient going between the two worlds and not have to walk to Hera and back. But whatever, you can't rely on that. We get the Quake Medallion in Paradox Cave, though.
Yeah, so we've got all 3 of those now. The fact that we don't have knowledge of either medallion entries also doesn't matter, and that's a good thing to have at this point. Especially when we were considering for Game 2 where the Bombless Medallion would have been for Turtle Rock access. And that's just one less thing that these runners have to worry about now.
Interestingly, Hydra doing a save and quit from Spectacle Rock and going back down here. This is just an interesting way of getting back. I think it's faster to just walk out of the cave and hop down and hook shot over.
I agree with that. I didn't happen to notice, though, what Hydra's health might have been at, so possibly just wanting that quick refill as well.
Oh, that could be it.
You know, you never know, you get stuck in a dead rock, or one of the Tektites might get you.
Stuck
Everything
in a
up here
dead
is-
rock? Nah.
What? Okay, no, you're right. I'm just making that up. That's never happened. Dead rocks aren't even in the game.
I was going to say, if you're truly worried about dead rocks, you can just powder them or quake them and then slash at them, but those weren't options for Hydra at the time.
We do see, though, that DIVISIGNS is heading back up the mountain this... Oh, well, that's right. They don't have mitts. I'm sorry. So Tower of Hera is going to be where they're heading to next. It's Hydrapower that has the mitts. So quick question in chat, just that we're about 45 minutes in. What is the goal? Just as a quick reminder, as Game 3 between Hydrapower and DIVISIGNS, this game is back basically to a traditional open mode seed. So we need 7 crystals for GT, 7 crystals for Ganon vulnerability. It is a defeat Ganon goal, and there are no dungeon item shuffles enabled for this one. This has been a very entertaining series to watch, both runners sharing a very equal amount of skill and execution. Game 2 just came down to routing. Game 3 has been very even so far as well. 45 minutes in, cannot make any sort of conclusion about who might have any advantage. It's very, very even at this point.
TT, what's DIVISIGNS doing?
Looks like dropping a bomb and spinning the sword around, and then falling into the
himself
pot.
Into the pot,
Hmm.
grabs it, and hey, let's just skip a couple floors of this dungeon.
One of those fancy new-ish, relatively new. There's been I mean, not to get too off topic, there's been a lot of new glitches discovered in A Link to the Past between the randomizer and the vanilla speedrunning communities. Really, really cool that a game almost 30 years old is still having things be discovered. But yes, in this case, the Hera pot, allowing a runner to clip into that pot, which you normally fall down from like 4 floors above or something silly like that, and being able to skip the requirement for the big key. Of course, there's a risk with that.
Yeah, we've only seen one of the 2 dungeon items so far. And so DIVISIGNS is going to hope that he gets one off of Moldorm. If that doesn't happen, he's left an item behind in the big chest that Hydrapower will get. And he'll have to make the call of, do I go into the basement, wait it out, or do I just leave that?
Well, just bombs off of Moldorm.
On the one hand, just bombs. On the other hand, he doesn't have to go back for the big chest.
That's a pretty big hand. Hydrapower taking a death warp out, set it up very nicely in the tile room.
So DIVISIGNS beats Tower of Hera, but without the mitts, can't do much else on the mountain. Just gonna check Spec Rock Cave, see that it's a bottle, and peace out of here.
So you've got to start wondering then, what's next for DIVISIGNS? Palace of Darkness and the Zora area are probably 2 of the only options that I can think of. And we're heading south to the water, so we can make a pretty good idea of what's going to happen next.
In his perspective, there's still an item in Eastern Palace. because we remember he took that death in the dark room and left the dungeon. We know it's just 20 rupees. It's not going to hurt him, but he will want to do that kind of as soon as it's efficient to do.
Right, so ideally that could mean waiting for the mirror or the flute just to have some fast access over to location number 5.
Mm-hmm. Zora area is good for him, though. That'll get him his mitts, which he needs to really continue on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, we could go into Ice Palace and fully clear that pendant dungeon. Doesn't seem like the strongest play right now.
Doesn't seem like one of the most fun either.
Oh, definitely not the most fun.
And that's not even because I have an issue with Ice Palace. There are just, in my opinion, better options at this point. My curiosity is, will DIVISIGNS just go straight back up the mountain? Just to not leave those Dark Death Mountain locations hanging for too long.
You know, that's not a bad thing to do here. Partly because it's, as we said, 6 items more. Now that you have Red Cane, you can dive T-Rock as far as you want. Partly because you look at this, you see the mitts on there, that ledge, you think about how early they were available, and you go, huh, I bet my opponent went there too. And in a heads-up 1v1 race like this, one of the things you want to be able to do is make sure your opponent isn't checking valuable spots that you aren't. You want to make sure you've got everything covered.
I think that's been one of the things so interesting about the series between these two runners, though, is that they both might even be thinking something along those lines. And they've done a very good job of making sure that they are covering basically the same checks, not too far apart from each other. And that's what's kept these races so interesting and so close.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends on kind of the execution strength of the two runners. If you've got, well, Zelda doesn't play rando, but if you had him against, say, one of us, we want to be able to be where he's not. We want to check the things he's not checking, because the only way we win is by taking a different route. With, say, these two runners, they're so closely matched in execution, they kind of want to stay on the same path and hope that today they've got the execution edge.
Mm-hmm. And we see DIVISIGNS heading back to Eastern and gonna clear that out, get that third item, possibly just walk south afterward and then go to Palace of Darkness. Or just feeling like this is the time to get that crystal while Hydrapower opens Turtle Rock, just to be clear, just to be sure, and then heads a little bit to the west, and we'll see what we get in these 6 locations that we've been so eagerly awaiting.
Alright, so let's say Hydrapower doesn't get any progression here. Does he go into Turtle Rock? I kind of want to say yes, because you know you can do everything except maybe the boss. I mean, the other alternatives for him would be going back to Skullwoods for that one item, or diving into ice, but at that point, you're looking at a pendant ice versus a pendant T-Rock that you're at the front of. Why not just 2 T-Rock? Hookshot Cave with 20 rupees. A heart piece. An arrow. And 20 more rupees, so I think it's time for Turtle Rock. Hydrapower disagrees with me. I guess this is a Spike Cave check. Which, without Berna or Cape is not in logic. Although with the red potion, it only takes 14 hearts to get through. So you can get damaged a bunch, drink your red potion, and then just keep walking, and you'll be fine. But DIVISIGNS, meanwhile, has beaten Eastern Palace, picked up that crystal, got himself to 4, which is technically a crystal lead, although I feel like he's a bit behind on overworld checks. Alright, Hydrapower spawning at Link's house. Gonna head south and make the walk over to Desert Palace. Which... oh, this is a rough one. You don't have boots, so it takes a long time to get there. And you don't have boots, so you might not be able to beat the dungeon. But if you can finish it, that is another crystal you get to mark as completed. As well as potentially 2 items for you. Plus whatever's in Nagina, plus whatever's on the ledge. This is a hard call. None of these decisions look particularly appealing. If the conventional logic is, hey, let's just go to crystal dungeons we know we can beat, we don't get to follow that here. It's, hey, which pendant dungeon and or not necessarily completable dungeon would you like to touch in? Oh. But Hydrapower's play is going to work out at the very least in terms of giving him a Master Sword on the desert ledge, which just makes the rest of the game playing more nicely. DIVISIGNS is going to pick that up eventually. It's kind of hard to miss when you end up in the desert area at least once, but short-term Hydrapower is going to have a bit of an easier time going through rooms, taking out enemies. Oh, and there's a flute right inside Desert Palace. So, gosh, help me out here, chat. Where did we find the book? And does that put everything back in logic now? Book was from Mushroom, thank you. Thank you. So, everything's back in logic once we get that flute from Desert Palace. But given that the flute was the only item we could grab, this dungeon is not completable, and Hydra's out of here. Probably to go activate that flute. So bad news, we can't beat that dungeon without boots. Good news, we're gonna get boots at some point in this race. So Hydrapower is going to activate that flute and probably head to Misery Mire, since that is a completable dungeon at this point. DIVISIGNS dipping into Turtle Rock, I expect is going to commit hard to this, and we're going to see him get all the way to Laser Bridge. Which, if this has boots, or the mirror that we need for Swamp Palace, could play out very well. I feel like boots will drive DIVISIGNS straight to Desert because he'll know that it's completable at that point. Whereas, you know, Mirror We 100% need it for Swamp Palace, but it could be a red herring that keeps him away from desert and away from getting that flute he needs.
So I see that we have a runner in Turtle Rock at the moment, and another runner has a flute. Apologies, I did need to step away for a moment to do something involving a
Hi,
cat.
DT.
Hi, Philian.
I'm so happy that DIVISIGNS is in Turtle Rock. I am so sad that he didn't get his flute from Desert and may not get it soon.
So why are you happy that they're in Turtle Rock? What do we have here?
It's an exciting dungeon. It's got interesting enemies from other Nintendo series, like Chain Chomps and Hokubokus. I love saying the word Hokuboku, but mainly I just like the idea that there'll be something useful here.
All right, I might actually be learning a bit of trivia here. What else is the Hokuboku in?
The Pokey?
Yeah.
It's from Mario.
Is it? I mean, I've seen the Super Mario World style Pokies, but these look different.
These are
look
like from SMB3, aren't they?
You know what? I'm actually not sure. But yes, you are correct nonetheless. That Turtle Rock is an exciting dungeon, full of execution challenges. And
it's
lots of RNG.
It's not a fun place to be on Fighter Sword.
Well, no, I'll definitely give credit to any runner that's going through here on Fighter Sword. I mean, not that we have Ice Rod, but even if you were to get the Trinex, if you have Master Sword or Fighter Sword, you're basically using Hammer for the full fight anyway. Fire Rod's generally pretty good to take out the Hokubokus.
That's right.
That's right. So there's not a lot of sword action in this dungeon. Hydrapower.
Hey. Yeah.
Hydrapower back through Skullwoods and with a pretty nicely clean moth fight. A lot of good fire rod shots. Also getting the powder now.
This was a good time to go and do that. Once you got the flute and the Master Sword, the fight's a little nicer.
Mm-hmm.
You can get there, or you're already in the area from activating the flute. You just say, all right, it's time to do this right now. I can get my 4th crystal.
You got a couple more hearts at this point, too.
Oh, and I know there's an item in the back, and so now Hydrapower has that powder from Moth, which we haven't seen either run or check yet.
No, that's true. We have not. So we are set on small keys now for Turtle Rock. Laser Bridge is not going to have one. Not sure where we stand with maps or compasses. We could have up to 4 items accessible to us, though, depending on that. Also, it's really interesting seeing just the shadow of the hint tile. It just looks like a block where the Samaria pad just isn't showing up.
That whole shape of the sprite reminds me of fighting Missing No in Pokemon Blue.
That's a fantastic comparison. And our wonderful tracker, Reg, informing me that we have not seen either map or compass. So, at most,
be careful here.
Yeah, we'll open that safety door, as its name implies, just to be safe, and then up to 3 more items on this laser bridge. Map and compass are here, then only 2.
Okay, Hydrapower is going to go into Misery Mire, and like he went down out of his way just to aggro this bird. He could have slashed it out of the way, but he instead baited it over here. I'm just saying. He seems to be pulling it. Oh my god.
And just...
Oh my goodness.
Poor frozen bird everywhere.
Imagine going out of your way to aggro a bird just so you can smash it.
Those are not the birds that anger either. They hurt. And
Maybe
they
he wants revenge.
DIVISIGNS having a little bit of trouble with these lasers. Picked up the Cane of Burna on the 4th chest, Vanilla Small Key chest. Not a ton of extra magic though, but we may see them pull it out here. Or we'll just take a 3rd laser to the face. I mean, there's a certain quota that we have to hit. I think per day we're like contractually obligated for it or something. I'm not sure what the number is today though.
That's why I face check lasers so much. It's for the quota for everyone.
So map and compass on Laser Bridge, the worst case of what was available, which means that Trinex will have 1 more item.
Yeah, and I think we got 0 progression from that entire dive into T-Rock, which seemed like a reasonable play, but really did not work out for DIVISIGNS and kind of puts him back quite a bit. Still doesn't have that flute from Desert, and Hydrapower in Misery Mire is much more likely to find something, or at the very least, be able to go straight to the crystal at Vitreous.
I'll absolutely agree, though, that Turtle Rock would make sense as a play at this point. In terms of beatable crystals, without the flute, DIVISIGNS doesn't have any at this point. So where's the density? And Turtle Rock's a great answer for that.
Certainly, going back to that choice from earlier, Turtle Rock versus Ice Palace, I'm going to dive into Turtle Rock first, especially if I'm at the front door.
And to go completely through both dungeons, they take about the same amount of time, for almost twice the number of items in Turtle Rock.
DIVISIGNS through the 3rd room now of the Dark Basement. It's a little nicer when you can go straight to the Dark Room in this dungeon. If you're doing it in the dark, if you have the Godmire, then you never hit the switch in the first place, so you avoid having to hit that first switch in the room with Spike going back and forth, which, with all the fireball shooters around, actually is kind of a pain to line up properly.
Oh, for sure. You're almost guaranteed to take a couple hearts of damage, just in the process.
And Godmire, of course, is a great play, partly because you need, or you get the crystal, and partly because Vinny might just have one of your 2 items right here. And with silver arrows, this is fun.
See, now this alone might be why we got silvers so early. It just makes this fight cake.
That's not how the law that's not.
I mean,
that's not how the logic works.
I stopped caring about the logic when I played this quite a while ago, and I focused much more on convenience.
I suppose so. But yeah, just a key from Vitreous, so still 2 items left in this dungeon.
That's interesting. I mean, at this point, if there's multiple checks, you find the 2 items fairly early in what's left, and you can just go. Good use of the sword beams as well in the Mire 2 room. With boots, that's probably one of the most satisfying rooms to pull off the fast strat.
And DIVISIGNS made the walk all the way over to Desert, found it was boots locked, picked up that flute. I think he's going to check Sick Kid and probably Magic Bat right now before he flies down to Mire area and follows in Hydra's footsteps. But at this point, we are 2 items away from go mode. We need the boots to beat Desert Palace. We need the mirror to beat Swamp Palace, and that is it.
That is it, and I mean, when you think of it, there's quite a bit that's still open to us. Oh, look! Did you see what DIVISIGNS just got?
A lamp.
A lamp.
Okay.
It's just
That's nice.
interesting to see where that was. And I think, based on location, both the lamp and the flute would have been. I guess either one of them could have been obtained logically first.
Logically, they were available at the same time, roughly the same time.
But also available, that was the mirror in the Misery Mire Vanilla Big Key chest. So that's gonna fully open Swamp Palace for us, which is another world of item locations to get through.
Yeah, that's not what you like to see. You don't want to be going into Swamp Palace and wondering, okay, do I have to do left side or not for my last item?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it makes your next play fairly clear. Do checkerboard because you're right in the area, and then just go straight to Swamp Palace.
Of course, yeah. And then, did DIVISIGNS just save and quit away from the Mire area? Oh, they didn't. They didn't have enough magic to open it. That's what happened.
Oh.
Well,
ironically, I think it was using that powder to activate his bat that did it. But did Hydrapower catch the boots in Mire?
That was definitely the boots in Misery Mire. Boots and mirror, so that is go mode.
Talk about a god mire, not just with your key layout, but in fact with your remaining go mode items. We're going to try to get Hydrapower's video back for you guys so you're not worried so much about what's going on, but we'll see what's up. Good news for DIVISIGNS, he is on this path as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he is going to be a couple minutes behind.
So route divergences aside, yeah, all in all, it's fairly close. And depending on how DIVISIGNS routes through Misery Mire, those boots could be obtained a little bit earlier than Hydrapower got them, allowing DIVISIGNS to catch up, even if only minimally. Seconds
could. You know, obviously it wasn't correct here, but I'm still going to defend the God Mire play that Hydrapower did, and if DIVISIGNS does it as well, I'm not going to fault them for it.
Oh no, of course not. That's a situation where, kind of no matter how you're routing this dungeon, neither one is incorrect, neither one is necessarily correct, they're just a little different.
Yeah, now DIVISIGNS is going to get to make up a little bit of time in Mire here, just by having the lamp for the dark rooms in the basement, but it's not going to be a huge amount. And actually today, Eastern was the only other dark room we were forced to do.
All in all, not such a bad seed when you put it that way.
No, I was really worried when we got that mirror because it opens up so many bad checks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but that's where the boots were. They were right on the way to Vitreous.
Yeah,
that's very good for DIVISIGNS.
That's what's so interesting about it. Because yeah, had it been in the chest one screen south of that, it would have taken a bit longer, and that's an easy one to miss if you decide to just go for Vitreous straight away. But I guess it all depends on your preference. That could have easily been a small key or a map or compass or something non-important. So what we hope for DIVISIGNS then is to come back in here once Vitreous is defeated. That mirror is not in a quick location by any means, but it is obviously essential toward completing the seed. As Hydrapower is about to drain the water out of the dam and enter Swamp Palace, which would be crystal number 7 for Hydrapower. And this is
Go mode Swamp Palace, just
Go mode Swamp. Although I guess you'd open, I don't know, maybe waterfall chests, hoping for tempered sword. Do you check the couple screens south of it?
I would do the 2 flooded chests if you're looking for a sword, and the waterfall chest, obviously. The south loop chest is a bit extra and maybe not worth it, but it's hard to say because if you're hydrapower, you haven't touched a pendant dungeon ever this seed. You never went into Turtle Rock, you never went into Ice Palace, you never went into Pod. That's a lot of spots on the table that could be holding your sword, and that really decreases the odds that any one chest in Swamp Palace is going to have tempered for you.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a valid assessment. It would be a different story in DIVISIGNS' case, having gone through all of Turtle Rock.
Oh no. He beat Vitreous. That's good. But he walked out and he did a save and quit. That's bad.
That is most unfortunate for the current situation. You know, you want to talk about plays that you can't fault a runner for, and I would still say that this is another one you can't necessarily fault them for. Because, I mean, of course, DIVISIGNS doesn't know that it's the remaining item is the mirror. He also doesn't know that the remaining item is in the longest location to get to in the dungeon. But as a runner, when there's one item remaining in a dungeon, you kind of think about what the worst case could be. And you ask yourself, do I want to go through all of that time?
And here's the thing that may have pushed his decision. He gets the boots in Mire, and he thinks about Turtle Rock. He goes, okay, there's one more item in Mire. I just did all of Turtle Rock for nothing. I'm not sure I can afford to full clear this dungeon looking for one more item. So I totally get why he's going to take the boots, go do what else he can. And in some ways it works. He just got a sword from the Bonk Rocks.
Right, and that's a sword that Hydrapower's I mean, I feel safe saying that Hydrapower is not going to get that sword.
Oh, very safe. If Hydra goes looking for that, I will be very confused. And for DIVISIGNS also, you can go back to Desert Palace, which has a crystal that you need and still has an item in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if
hope that...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you first.
Go
started.
ahead. I insist. I'm Canadian. I get to insist.
You heard it, chat. Filing insists. I actually forgot what I was gonna say. Oh no, you go for crystals, especially if you're feeling behind after that Turtle Rock dip that Filean mentioned. You keep going for crystals. That's your definitive progression at this point. Your turn, by the way. You can speak now.
Well, you stole what I had to say.
Seriously?
Pretty much.
Wow.
I mean, it was the thing to say. I would have used different words, but yours were probably just as good.
Alright, Filean, last time we commentated together, I explained this one. Why are there so many numbers in chat right now? I forgot.
People are rating this seed on a scale of 1 to 10.
Are you sure it's not a scale of 1 to 22?
Okay, see,
right.
DT, this is the reason you usually explain it, because I don't understand what's being done here.
So, after we get the 7th crystal, and our first runner's up to Ganon's Tower, it's a good time to take a little survey in chat of how you would rate the seed on a scale of 1 to 22. Did I get that right?
Sure, as far as I know. Alright, we should probably be serious and actually be less confusing for the 3 people who don't know.
You're right, that's fair.
No, the randomizer is always a little weird because it bottlenecks you into Ganon's Tower, and then you get to go through the basement, and there are 22 possible checks that could have the big key. And as soon as you get the big key, and one small key, you can climb the tower and be certain you'll get to the top. But we do play a fun little guessing game, just to see where we think that key is going to end up today. And that number can change depending on if Hydrapower decides to go left or right at the start, or go left a bit and then go further right. There's a lot of options.
Well said.
Did I get that right?
Yes. No, that was a much more accurate description. Although, if you want to put the rating system into effect, we can kind of give it like golf rules, where the lower number is a better rating. If it's a correct low number.
Yeah, that's fair.
So as Hydrapower is entering Ganon's tower, the question is, where will DIVISIGNS head to next? And we've gone through Turtle Rock.
I really
Probably not going back to Mire.
I hope he just goes back to Mire for that item. I think the other alternative is Ice or Pod, which is not the right option today.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. 2 small keys for Hydrapower. Right at the start. He could go right, but instead, he's going to go left.
See, I like having 2 small keys there, and I wish it happened more often. And I'll tell you why. Probably a totally baseless theory, but maybe that's why I didn't qualify for this tournament, I'm not sure. When I see 2 small keys on that right side, and I know that I'm entering the Stalfos room, and there's usually a couple of small keys here, 1 or 2 on average, that's less room for there to be a small key on this side, which means more room for a big key. And
I see.
That's just what I like to go with. Is it true? Probably not. In this case, it would have worked out beautifully. And that was what? Chest number 5, I believe.
I think so. Very, very quick GT start for Hydrapower. And now he gets to run up the gauntlet. This is less fun with without Tempered Sword. Master Sword takes an extra hit to kill a lot of the enemies, but with Silver Arrows, you can certainly mitigate some of that loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, silvers are definitely fine to have. The other thing you would hope for if you're down a sword might be half magic, just for how quickly it kills the Stalfos. And, I mean, gosh, I remember when we had quarter magic in these tournaments, and that made the Fire Rod last almost an infinite amount of time, it seemed. But having 16 shots with it, with half magic, is still very plentiful.
Oh, the glory days of 32 Fire Rod shots to just clear the entire gauntlet.
Oh my god. You remember having
that was back when we had non-progressive swords, so you always had butter as well.
Oh yeah. You remember having quarter magic on Cold Stare? And how much fun that was?
Good times. Wait, are we reminiscing about old versions? I think that's a spot on the bingo board.
Alright,
So, Gauntlet. Hydrapower not using bow, but actually going for sword beams for one of those Stalfoses. Bit unorthodox, but it worked in that case. These guys are just obnoxious with how they jump away from your slashes. That's why we see so many pot grabs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually when you enter that first room, that top right pot is quick enough to pick up, and that top right, top middle-ish Stalfos kind of cooperates to just have it thrown right into him. Same with the Stalfos in the room that Hydrapower's in right now. Usually walks a bit more to the right, but I guess RNG was a little bit different. Generally safe to hold down left as you enter the room, shoot a Fire Rod shot or an arrow. Yes, an arrow. You're not shooting the bow. And it's almost always a guarantee to get that quick kill.
Yeah, the arrow is a guaranteed hit if the Stalfos does the right RNG, walks in the right direction for you. The Fire Rod is always a hit, no matter where that Stalfos walks. Great Landmo too, getting the 1 cycle with the silver arrows for Hydrapower. Plenty of magic here. Hydrapower is going to go for Fire Rod shots on these torches. I'm not actually sure if it's faster or slower, although I suppose it has the advantage of if you do Fire Rod there, you don't have to switch to it for this second torch room.
Yeah, menuing becomes a factor. As long as you have the magic for it, generally, I'm not sure though. If you were to time it just the one room, which one would be faster? But I mean, in this case, Hydrapower actually does not have the lamp.
No, and boy, it's a good thing we have the silver arrows here, because otherwise we'd be looking at a silverless Master Sword fight, where you absolutely want that lamp.
Mm-hmm. Nice use of fake powder, though.
Oh yeah, out of magic, but that doesn't stop you from using the powder if you fail to use the cane immediately beforehand. Hydrapower is checking chests up here, just hoping to get a tempered sword and make the Ganon fight go faster.
Still one more in the pool, but as far as Hydrapower is concerned, could be here, could be Pod, could be Ice Palace, could be Turtle Rock. Add that up. There's gotta be close to 35 locations it could be alone.
Oh yeah, there's a lot we never saw. Or that he never saw.
Mm-hmm. So just like that, we're at the top of Ganon's Tower for the Aghanim 2 fight. Mentioned something earlier about a hypotenuse, and then Phylin reminded me that that was too early.
Is that a triple?
Game's weird. It looked like it would have been, but I'm not sure if all three of those counted. That should have been
like a double. So just one or two more hits on Aga 2 here.
Just the one.
There we go. Nice fight from Hydrapower.
Very nicely done. Dash around the room a bit. And then we have a Master Sword Ganon fight. A little bit tricky for especially the second phase. As you may know, we need to do spin attacks only. It'll be 12 spins in phase 1, 12 spins in phase 2, and a lot of dodging of fire bats.
Yeah, so if you know the Samaria block strat, you can put one of those down and prevent yourself from getting recoiled like crazy. And that'll help a bit with this fight. Or, oh no, Hydrapower got in Ganon's way, which stops the teleport early, preventing Ganon from getting to the bottom where you can wedge yourself in between him and the wall. That's too bad.
Had an opportunity for a double spin there. Unfortunately, if you kind of, how can I phrase this? The way that
have to be facing sideways, right?
Yes.
Like
thank you for correcting what I was trying to say. You knew, and it made more sense. On to phase 2, we've got fire bats. Another 12 spins in total before we get to phase 3.
And for this, you just have to take it slowly and not be too aggressive. It's when I see people go wrong in this fight, it's when you're trying to get in too many hits too quickly. And sometimes you just have to say, all right, I'm only getting 2 hits this cycle. Which, in Hydrapower's position, you can afford. And I think he knows that he came close to an optimal route in this seed. He should feel good about his position right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can do at least 2 spins per cycle right now, you're at a solid enough pace. If you can squeak out a third one, maybe a fourth, then kudos to you. We're not getting.
Ideally, Ganon goes top right, but we're not seeing that.
I was just gonna say we're not getting any of those top corner positions from Ganon, so we're not getting any sort of a free round here.
Blue Mail is nice to mitigate the damage that those fire bats do here.
And there we go, we are out of this. So 6 hearts at this point. A Ganon Hug would do all 6 of those hearts of damage. So just keep a little bit of distance, mind ourselves for these spin attacks. And it should be relatively smooth sailing from here.
Yeah, into phase 3, most of the danger is gone. Just have to be careful of the fire bats in phase 4, but that's pretty easy when you have fire arrows.
Ooh. Getting 2 fire rod shots off and still getting the torch click.
Oh no!
Oh! You know, one of the most tricky things about Phase 4 with Master Sword
Is the bounce.
is yes, exactly that.
Oh no.
Because if you have Tempered Sword or Butter, you can wait for Ganon to shoot the Fire Bat, and then probably still get a slash in to stun him in place. Oh, we haven't checked Pyramid Lodge yet. Interesting.
It's a great little check.
With the Master Sword, because you need the spin, if you're holding it out and Ganon shoots the Fire Bat, by the time you get over there, you're probably just getting a silverless hit on him instead of stunning him. So it's a little tricky to be there straight away as soon as he's done teleporting. But Hydrapower did such a great job in Phase 1 and 2 last time, let's do it again.
Yeah, and shoutouts to that fairy in the tree that Hydrapower was able to bonk and refill most of his health there.
Shoutouts to that Trident spin a moment ago too, got the double up at the top of the room and then the double off of the Trident.
Much nicer Phase 2 this time around.
Let go of that B button a little bit. Had a chance for another double. Decided not to go in for one more quick hit. Oh, but look at this. Another... gotta be a little careful, but...
Top left is fine, but it's not as nice as top right.
For sure.
Yeah, it's blue potion time.
Good to just play that one safe. I think at this point they know they've got enough hits in. And yeah, we're on to Phase 3. Ooh, almost getting hit by that bat. Not getting the torch glitch, not a huge deal when we have silvers. We'll get a silverless hit in for good measure anyway.
Mentioning. Okay,
Good patience.
So I'm a little worried about Hydrapower's magic here.
Little bit. Should be able to get another hit on this cycle.
Yeah,
and
okay, we only need one more.
Must have like a sticky B button or something.
Oh no. And
do they have another blue or
no
green
way we
pot?
can light both torches.
Well, unknown to Hydrapower, they do have the time, but this is not a situation that feels very good, and it can be tough to sort of slow yourself down, regroup, and collect your gameplay thoughts a bit, and just slow yourself down a bit.
Yeah, mentally this is a hard spot to be in. You can go from feeling like, oh yeah, I've got this, I loved my route, I was really on top of things, to, oh no, I've fallen twice. That opens up time for my opponent to catch up if they did some overworld stuff, even if they did some overworld stuff, and it just really can rattle you. Plus, you got that feeling of, I know how to do this. Why isn't this working? But he stayed on top of the game. Did you see where he put his mirror portal?
Yes, right under the bridge to the castle. Oh no. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we couldn't see it there. It was hiding.
I thought it might have been just far enough into the castle that you could get out but not back in. That would have been interesting. So yeah, two very different situations for our runners right now, and probably two very similar mindsets at the moment. Just that bit of a rush.
Yeah, it looks like DIVISIGNS is finally heading back to Misery Mire. We did see him be fairly exhaustive in checking the overworld. But he will get his Mire here, or his mirror here now that he's back in Mire. His Mire in mirror?
It's close enough. I
was reflecting things because there's a mirror.
Right, and they've got like a lot of similar letters.
At least half.
Yes. And if you use a reflection, then that half becomes whole anyway, because you see two. I don't know.
No, Reflections in Celeste, not Link to the Past.
Such a good game.
It's a very good Ganon setup for Phase 2 there, being in the top right. And I like how Hydrapower just, like, half put himself into Ganon there, so that he could still get the hook shot on the torch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, regardless of the issues that Hydrapower faced in the first and second fight against Ganon, you wouldn't know it by watching this fight so far. You would not know that anything had gone in a less than favorable way. We are already back on Phase 3.
Oh, and nice double use of the fire rod there to make sure you get the torch glitch. It is actually rather challenging to line that up. Or time that properly if you don't have lamp. But 4 hits will do it for Hydrapower.
And with those 4 hits, that is a GG, as many of you in chat already are aware. And a win for the series in this Game 3 between Hydrapower and DIVISIGNS.
Yeah, he finishes with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 33 minutes, 56 seconds, as DIVISIGNS picks up that mirror, and it looks like he's going to take the forfeit at this point, which I totally understand. The last thing you want to do at this point is have to play out all of Swamp and GT.
Right. And
go ahead.
Swamp's quick, of course, but GT, you never know. So, that being said, get GG's in chat for DIVISIGNS as well for playing a great series. I don't know if you guys saw the second match between these two just before this, but both of these races were a ton of fun to watch. So, definite GG for both runners, no matter the situation. And we have Hydrapower in the chat with us right now. Hello, GG, congratulations on the series.
So I had some song lyrics I was going to quote here, which is, "This was a triumph. I'm making a note here. Huge success." Which, if you don't know that, that's Still Alive from Portal, which describes my tournament standing right now. But I don't know that I can really call it a huge success when I'm trying to throw the game as hard as I did not throw the bird earlier. So, so maybe it's a moderate success. I don't know.
I mean, it's still a success nonetheless. Let's start there for a moment, though. 3 attempts against Ganon. The first 2, of course, having that little bit of a struggle. I do want to ask, what was going through your mind at that point? How much pressure were you possibly feeling? But also, I want to commend you for sticking through it as well as you did, because by the time you got to that 3rd round, had someone just tuned in, they wouldn't know that you had an issue the first 2. You still did great in that 3rd fight.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it. I was feeling pretty good overall because of the 2 items in Mire that I needed. And when I'm looking around, I'm like, I didn't go to any pendant dungeons. Woohoo! Look at me, pendant dungeons here. So I felt pretty good about things because I had a lot of overworld that wasn't done either. So, but of course, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, maybe Divi's done the same thing, and maybe he's right on my tail, and maybe I'm going to throw this race and get knocked out of the tournament. So, so there was a lot of tension in there too. But I was like, you got this, man. It's totally fine. This is totally fine. You can totally do this. So, yeah, you definitely think like, oh God, what's happening? But yeah, just try to fall back on your practice and experience, and just not worry about the fact that 1,000 people are watching you right now.
Well, I think that's exactly it, and that's another bit of pressure that you touched upon, is the viewership, because it's no joke. It is a lot of people that are watching you, so you just gotta focus on you and keep going ahead. And when one thing leads to another in the seed, you just make it work.
Yeah, and it's definitely exposure therapy for if you have like anxiety about like I don't know like public speaking or something, but it's like a different kind of thing. And again, you fall back on your experience. Like I've been playing this game for over 2 years now, so you just kind of get in that zone and go with it and not worry about what everyone else is doing and thinking and stuff, because Twitch chat be Twitch chat. And they're going to say things, but I mean, most of the time, everybody's good. And if anybody is mean, it gets shouted down really fast. So I wasn't worried about that either. I'm sure everyone was enjoying the race and having a good time. And yeah, back to the other race too, where I found the boots on Helma. I'm like, okay, I don't know if Divi would have found those. Like he might have, but I tend to be the kind of player that is very thorough to a fault. Like if I'm going in a dungeon, I don't want to leave anything behind. Which is why Key Sanity and I don't get along very well. So, so for better or worse, I usually do that. And what ends up happening is like if there's something good, in the time consuming spot, that's really good for me. And if there's nothing there, as there often is, well, then I lost 2 minutes or whatever. And unfortunately, if you stack up all those time losses where nothing is anywhere, then you end up losing. But if you get just one of them to hit, that's usually pretty good. And for me personally, that's the kind of philosophy I have, as opposed to many people who will leave something behind and hope that it's nothing, because if they're wrong, then oh boy. Yeah.
Understood. It's well, how can I phrase this? When it comes to being as thorough as you say you are with this, you've got other players that are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum that will just want to take gambles and take more risks, and it's not necessarily wrong either way.
No, it isn't. And in fact, if you think about it, let's say you find 5 items in Swamp and you go back for the 1. I mean, that going back for the 1 is the gamble at that point, because you assume that, especially if you find a bunch of good items in Swamp at that point, and it opens up the rest of the world. I mean, what are the chances that the one thing is something you need? It's pretty small, actually. So in a way, I do take gambles, but they maybe don't look like gambles other people take, and that's just, like I said, that's just the philosophy I've come up with for how I want to play. It doesn't tend to lend itself to first place finishes in big races. It tends to lend itself to good finishes. But yeah, you get the players that are like first place or forfeit. So
I mean, I think what's important is being consistent to your own style, and it's that thoroughness that you've mentioned that ultimately led to you winning this series. I don't know if you plan on watching the races back or not, but with race 2, I know that there was no interview. We hopped right into race 3. With race 2, you getting those boots was the turning point. DIVISIGNS might have been a bit ahead, but cleared out Pendant Pod and did not get the boots until at least a good 20, maybe 30 minutes later. And then similarly in this seed, for the time, it was a fantastic play. The DIVISIGNS dipped into Turtle Rock, and that just completely came up empty.
Yeah, I was thinking
but
about
then
that.
also left Misery Meyer after defeating Vitreous without getting the mirror.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for him. I was talking to him a little bit in the race room about his plays, and they worked out for me today. In my first series against Edium, those plays didn't work, and that's why I lost to him by several minutes. So I like to think of this game a lot like poker, where you can make what you think are good plays and they just don't work because the cards didn't come up that way. And so you just got to do what you think is right and what you are feeling comfortable with. And various players have various levels of aggression, all the way from super conservative to hyper gambling, and I think it makes for really interesting viewing too. Because we have 128 competent players here in this tournament, and competent players, I think, always have a chance against anybody. And you can make that one play and beat somebody who might be objectively better than you or favored, but it doesn't matter because you managed to capitalize on your luck and win. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch for sure. It already is, actually.
No doubt. Well, in some cases, you could say that the luck of the rando is what decides every race, but in these 2 races that I watched today in your series, it came down to the routing simply because I would say your execution was very on par with each other. And that alone made it a very, very interesting series to watch and to keep tabs on. I mean, in terms of the gameplay, it was very close all the way through. could have been anyone's game, but you go left, they go right. Someone's going to be right, and someone's not going to find what they need. That's just how this goes.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I mean here. In like a tournament like this, where everybody that's qualified is really good. Some people are more gooder than others, you know, but everyone's good, and that's, you know, you put two good players together and toss in some randomizer luck, and you're going to get, you know, chaotic results, which I think is really interesting to watch as a viewer for sure. So I'm excited to see like who is left standing, you know, at the end. Which of the new generation is going to challenge the old guard, you know? And we've already had some people that get knocked out already here, you know, raising some eyebrows too, and then some people moving on that you're like, hey, cool. Well, so I'm really excited to watch. I'm excited that I'm still standing, and I'm excited to get bodied by whoever I end up facing in the bracket round, because I don't know. I'm probably going to end up with a win percentage of like, I think it's going to be 4 out of 7. Because unfortunately, Edium had to withdraw from our group, so
Sure.
I get a couple of cheap wins there, unfortunately. But you know, my seed was like 93, you know, because I didn't have great qualifiers, and so that's going to lend itself to me fighting somebody pretty good. But you know, again, it's rando; you never know, and I'm excited to you know, try my luck and see what happens.
Well, at the end of the day, it sounds like you've got a great attitude about this, win or lose. You're excited, and that's what this is for. It's meant to be a fun tournament. And it sounds like you're having just that, so we're very glad to hear that.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is... I've been playing video games for over 35 years. This is one of the most fun and challenging games that I've ever played. Definitely goes in like the all-time pantheon alongside some other PC game involving Zerg and Protoss. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that game, but you know, so yeah, it's a lot of fun, and you don't let it get to you either, you know, like, oh god, the ice rod last location, this stupid game, why do I play this crap? But it's, you know, you always come back to it. It's a lot of fun, and like I said, it's one of the most fun things I enjoy playing, and I'm glad to be part of this great community. It's a lot of great people, everyone's real friendly, and it's just wonderful to be part of.
Very well said. So congratulations once again to Hydrapower on taking this series, this best of 3, this fantastic 3-game series. Phylan, do you have anything you would like to add?
I like video games, and this was a good time of people showing me how to play video games. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, video games.
Yeah, video games. Feel free to
top tier content from me.
Follow both Hydrapower and DIVISIGNS, and along with Phylan and Reg. Again, Reg tracking both races today. Thank you so much for that. I'm in the name of DT. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. Did I say I like video games? Because I also do like video games. It's worth saying a couple more times. Have a great night, everybody. Take care of yourselves.
Good night, all.